I want to, first of all, thank the Coleman Foundation once again for supporting us in what we're going to talk about next. We are an organization that has always worked with families, and we've worked with families for a number of years now in helping them create different solutions. The Coleman Foundation has, through their generous funding, allowed us to be able to work now for the last year, and we'll be going through into next year, with a group of providers who provide support services for people with disabilities in the community and their families who are aligned with them. Because they had families coming to them saying, we're looking for something a little different than maybe what is out there right now. So for those of you who may not be familiar with us as an organization, we've been a nonprofit since 2002. We support individuals with disabilities and their families. We're very family driven. More than half of our board are family members. And we work with families and bring in and talk to families and have collaborative meetings about what do we need to be doing next all the time. We were founded by two moms who were professionals, and both had daughters with disabilities who had left high school, and they were entering into the adult world, and what was there wasn't what they wanted or what their daughters wanted. And so that was really the impetus of doing a community call to action, and we started that way. For individuals with disabilities to be able to have access to all opportunities of a full life. This young man here is an actor, and a really good one. Across the United States, for the most part, 77% of funding in general is done for people living in 1 to 6 person settings. In Illinois, it's 42%. For dollars spent for 6 or fewer person settings, 81% across the United States. In Illinois, it's 58%. State institutions, 14 states have no institutions now, have closed them completely. We still have 7 operating institutions. And again, back to the point that we talked earlier, for Illinois, we're at 63% of people who are caregivers who are over the age of 60. So with that in mind, and that's what families were facing really back in 2003 even, this was the very first option, and this was done in collaboration with a landlord in the community who said, I want to see opportunities for people with disabilities to exist in Evanston. So this landlord made this opportunity possible. And it's a 3-flat. So there's 3 individuals, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath on the first floor, second floor, and then on the third floor is an individual we call community builder, an employee of ours, who lives there and provides support with building community and getting integrated, meeting the local merchants, going out and meeting the different, identifying the different opportunities, but making sure every person is introduced to the community also, so that there isn't a fear or discomfort when the new, the new store clerk meets someone and they might seem a little different. So we do that through our community builders. Then a group of families in 2004 said, you know what, we need something more. And they formed an LLC, and they purchased this building, which is a mixed use. So you have the commercial on the first floor, and then there's 6 different units on the other 2 floors. Most of them are 1 bedroom, 2 of them are 2 bedrooms, and one of those has our community builder family. So a husband and a wife and 2 beautiful little kids who really add a lot of energy to the community, I might add. Interestingly, to the concerns about families being involved with creating things that aren't sustainable, this project, though originally funded and purchased by families, as those families aged and they were told, this is probably not the best investment for you to have in your 70s and 80s, we really worked closely with that family group for 2 years to identify another LLC who's in the real estate business who said, listen, we actually want to be able to give back, and they're a for-profit company, but we'd like to purchase this, and we are not going to look at making our standard return on this. We're going to look for 1 to 2%. That's all we want, and we'll be providing all the supports. So there are relationships that do get built, that do make these things go from generation to generation. And then in 2006, we worked with this developer who was creating this condo development at the time, and we were able to work with one of our nonprofit affordable housing groups that helped us get 5 affordable mortgages in this building when it was first being built. So that isn't, and now we have this one, and then that sister tower went up. Individuals, 10 individuals live in the first tower, 10 live in the second. There's about 60 units in each tower. So how do we get there, and how do families figure that out? How do they come together? We really, as we were developing all these different options with family groups, we started putting together a training program. Because we knew that this is what families were coming to us saying, how do we come up with solutions? So our first training, when we're doing our training, it breaks into 4 different days with a tremendous amount of consulting in between and different homework and efforts by the family group in between the different days of consultation. The first one is beginning the journey, and that's all about our community development. Again, building those relationships, identifying where those assets are in your community. Who wants to be part of this solution? There are people, I tell you, there are people in our communities who are recognizing this is something our community wants to come together and come up with a solution. So it's identifying and developing that. The second day is really taking action, acquiring housing, working with the family group to say, what's the criteria? Really, what criteria is necessary to live in the community, right?
Right.
What do you need? How close to public transportation? All those things. So what's that criteria? The third day is moving ahead, and that's working directly with support providers. What type of supports need to be in place, but also what natural supports need to be in place. Because we need to be looking at every aspect. And finally, the last one is opening your doors. What are you going to expect? How do you engage with your community? How do you engage with your neighbors? We personally are always of the mindset you throw a party, but not everybody does that, and some people have just decided, no, we're just going to go in and just start living there. So there's all that, and then also what do you expect? What can people expect when they first move out? And I can tell you it's no different than probably what you've seen with children, I'm speaking as a parent, who when your kids that didn't have labels go off to college. It's really great the first 6 weeks. Then it's not so great. Like, they have to keep doing the laundry, and all of a sudden their roommate is kind of bugging them, and then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, no one makes my meals anymore. And that, will eventually even out. But we really work with families to help them work through that whole process. Here are some of the success stories of different family groups from around the country who have also gone through our New Futures training, and these are some of the options they've created. So in 2006, Intentional Communities of Washtenaw County in Ann Arbor went through our New Futures Initiative training. In 2008 and 2011, they created both a condominium, an ownership model, and a rental model. And then in 2013 and 14, they expanded more. Here's a story about STARS Family Services. They went through the training in 2008, 2011. They opened their very first residence on the top, and then 2 other options were made possible in 2016. In 2011, the National Group for Fetal Alcohol Syndrome, those families came together and went through the training, and in 2016 they opened their first option in Platteville, Wisconsin. 2011, Community Choices from Champaign, Illinois, went through the training, and in 2012 they opened up their first option. 2014, we worked with families in DC and Maryland, and they created their first option in 2015, which was more of an individual option for a person who was looking at to be living more in a community, more like a residential home. And then in 2016, they were able to collaborate and work with a developer who was putting this development up and asked if they could obtain 6 affordable units in this new development. And though that wasn't part of their plan initially, that developer said, you know what? Yes, yes, we're going to do that. And the family, I will be honest with you, they were a little surprised that they got that really positive response. And the question was, so we're just curious, why? Like, why are you saying yes to us? He says, because I have an 8-year-old son. And we all have to start making these communities happen because I need my son to be part of the community when he's ready. So again, those community relationships are there. And here we had a group of families that ultimately became their own nonprofit, Our House in Wilmette. They took the training in 2015, and in 2017 they opened their first option and are currently working on their second one. I also wanted to just make sure that if anyone hasn't been to our website and you're interested in how New Futures Initiative training works and how our whole process works, please go onto our website. Really with the support from the Coleman Foundation, we have been able to create this alternative housing options for individuals with disabilities, a fantastic guide both in English and in Spanish. It's certainly a 10,000-foot view of what we do when we're actually facilitating working directly with families. But our feeling is that if there's any family group that can grab this and that helps them move forward, Godspeed. And then also, now we want to talk about this most recent grant that we have been working on. And it started in March 2017. We'll be going through until March of 2019. And this was the grant I referenced where we really said, okay, now let's go talk to some of the providers and work directly with providers in the Chicagoland area who are working with families who are looking for options. So we've been working with Clearbrook, Jewish Child and Family Services, and Lo Que Puedo Venir. Right now, I'd like to ask folks from Clearbrook to come on up. So Hollis is the Director of Home-Based Services at Clearbrook, and we have a few family representatives here also from the group of families that have come together to really gathering resources to create housing. I'd like to welcome you, and if you could just start by introducing yourself, what your role has been, and then we'll move on to the Hollis, if you could start, and then we'll start with families.
Sure. Well, hi everybody. I don't know if this is on. It's okay. I'll just talk into it.
It is actually
it is. Okay. I'm Hollis Gorey, Director of Home-Based Services from Clearbrook. I have been working at Clearbrook for nearly 18 years in a variety of different capacities. And our role kind of in this process has been to learn, certainly, from CIF and participate in the training, but also to work with the families and with them on the supports. So what are the individuals served going to need? How can we meet those needs? How are people going to pay for those needs? What have you. Clearbrook currently serves a little under 8,000 families in 16 counties in the state of Illinois in a wide variety of ways. We do day services, employment services, residential, home-based services, early intervention. We kind of run the gamut, and I think we saw this opportunity as a really innovative way to develop another service line for the agency, and that's kind of what I hope to get out of it, is some good learning and understanding and another option for families we serve. So.
Great.
Hi, my name is Colleen Lundell. I am one of 9 families that are a part of this housing group. I have a 22-year-old son who is high functioning on the autism spectrum. They had asked us to give a little information. He is currently working full-time. And even though he's working full-time and has a lot of those skills, he is going to need some support in a housing environment. And people are like, wow, but your son drives, can people relate? He still has those needs that he is going to need some sort of support. So one of my roles was on this. We are all in this together, this community of 9 families, and we divided into some subcommittees, and one of my roles is on the housing subcommittees. And I will be honest, part of it was I still feel like a deer in headlights oftentimes, and then we hear, all these exciting opportunities here. because it is an intense process in that it's overwhelming. But I will say this, that the Center for Independent Futures and Clearbrook has been such a huge support in helping us kind of figure out, and they do a beautiful job of gently guiding and letting us explore and giving us that autonomy, but yet giving us direction when we need it. So for my situation, this group has also provided a unique opportunity that came up very quickly for my son and another young man in the housing committee. There was an affordable housing situation. So my son a month ago moved out and is now living in an apartment. But long term, what we are looking for is creating a more community sense. Right now, we are providing those services, those phone calls, those supports similar to as if he was living at home.
Hi, my name is Sue Tuckey. My son Kyle is the roommate of the other Kyle. We all were introduced to the other families about a year ago, and this year has been just a very exciting opportunity and just kind of a whirlwind. My son Kyle is 24. He has epilepsy and has been through special ed through his whole life. At 22, he left the school district and went into a program at Harper, which was very helpful as well, and that worked with transition services. He now currently works at Jewel and is very involved in Special Olympics and different other opportunities. As far as funding, he does receive SSI and SSDI. We had applied for home-based services, but he is one of those individuals who kind of falls in the cracks where he doesn't qualify for, they denied home-based funding for him. So we're kind of working, trying to figure out where to go from here as far as funding goes. But the wonderful thing about this group and also CIF and Clearbrook is that it gives us hope that there's other people out there looking for opportunities and different ways so you're not feeling like you're all alone with this whole group. So.
Hi, my name is Mark Holmes. I'm here with my wife Robin. I have a son who's 28. His name's Andrew, and he has intellectual disabilities. His reading, math skills are probably at a 3rd, 4th grade level. But despite that, he has considerable capabilities. He does drive an automobile within about a 5-mile radius of our house. He has a job at a local Mariano's. He works between 25 and 30 hours a week. And we recently, as a result of this group, and I would very much like to thank CIF and Clearbrook and the Coleman Foundation for their great support. But as a result of this, I've worked with Hollis recently to have someone on her staff do an assessment of Andrew's ability to live independently. And we're now working with Clearbrook as well on a program to see that he's ready to move into a independent living location when the group has something that we've lined up. That's pretty much of it.
Where is the group right now as far as your process? I know from where you started, but where are you now, currently?
Well, there is mentioned by Colleen, there's 9 families. There's 11 sons, so 2 of the families have sibling boys, different ages. We went through the full formal training with CIF, toured the facilities that Ann went through earlier in Evanston. We've also toured a number of other models and facilities to get an idea of what we ideally would like to have for our sons. We meet monthly as a group now as we've finished the formal training, which was started about a year ago. And since I think early summer or late spring, we meet. And the meetings are not conducted by CIF or Clearbrook, but they both do attend. And we run our own meetings, again, on a monthly basis. And then we've broken into subcommittees. There's a finance and legal subcommittee, and then there's a supports and social subcommittee, and which and meets as frequently as they need to, generally more frequently than monthly. Things that the subcommittees have worked on, for example, on the legal side, we've lined up found a law firm, a major law firm in Chicago, who on a pro bono basis is going to help us with the organization for our group, whether we're going to be an LLC or other type of entity. We're also going to be figuring out whether or not we want to be a for-profit or non-for-profit. Those are things that we'll be meeting with a law firm to go over and bring back to the full group to make a decision. Other things in the social committee side, there's is frequently as possible, we found that it's very important for our boys, our sons, to get to know each other, and if they're going to live with each other, they need to like each other. So there's a very big effort. There's been a number of activities that have been organized. One of the families, in fact, invited everybody to their home, and it was a great event. We had a bags tournament with parents and sons, and followed that with a cookout, and it was wonderful. And there's been other activities such as movies, and then meals afterwards for the boys. And there was recently a father and son games night at a parent's house. So we're working on that. That's extremely important for us. Other things, the support services, we're working with Clearbrook. We're also doing a lot of research, looking into technology and other areas. So we're kind of going in all directions all at the same time. And as you mentioned, this is kind of a whirlwind trip for us. But we're making a lot of progress. Then we get back together with the full group monthly and make decisions with the full group. As mentioned, two boys, I think is really positive, moved in with each other. Would not have happened, I believe, without this having been set up with CIF and Clearbrook. And I think that's a great move, and they'll be ready. They're living independently now, but they're figuring out there's a number of things other than just moving in together that need to be addressed. So I think it's a great experience for them, and will be helpful in the future when we do locate something for the broader group. Ideally, the group has decided and made a decision we'd like to find something in the Arlington Heights or Palatine areas. And we haven't started looking for a property, but we are going to be looking very soon. Ideally, we think at this point we'd like to have something of small apartment building type of setting for them, with probably some rehabilitation capabilities. We'd like to have a common area, if at all possible, where the boys would have meals together, hopefully quite often, and do other activities together. We don't want our sons to wind up just being in a room playing on their computers, late into the evening, and not getting out and having the benefit of socializing with other people. That's pretty much it.
What would you, and I'm going to ask any of the parents, we always had, when we're working with family groups, they'll say there was an aha moment, right? When they were going through or meeting people or touring, and there was like, wow. For a lot of families, it's, I think my son can do this. Or I think, well, have you had any of those aha moments during the process?
The biggest aha moment for me, and there's been a number of them, but the biggest one for me was I always thought of this getting together as being a housing project, finding a house where everybody wants to live. But it's a lot more than that. The housing is probably, I think, the least of it. With all the support that will likely be required, and the services, making sure it's a safe environment, that it's a location where their grocery store is nearby, so it's within walking distance. Most of the boys do not drive, but that was the biggest thing for me, is that it's not just housing.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like Mark said, I've had several aha moments. Most of the biggest, though, I would say, is how willing people are to be creative to work with you. I mean, just through the whole grant, and it's like an honor that you feel like there's really people who really want to work with you, and just getting to know each other as a family. I mean, like we're feeling like we're our own family. We wouldn't have had that if we didn't have that whole creation all together.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if it would be an aha moment, but I think the biggest surprise for me, and this is not to be discouraging, so please don't feel discouraged, but is the complexity of truly trying to come up with a solution. There's so many options out there, which is so inspiring, and it's really exciting. And there's so many supports out there, and we're going to hear more about from developers and from in-home, the remote monitoring. There's so much more out there than I ever realized. And I think for me, the aha moment was like, wow, there's a lot more supports out there if we can only reach out more to the community and find out. And it is complex, and that surprised me, but there is a lot of supports out there, and it's just the beginning, hopefully, of yet another housing solution, and that it can continue on and continue to grow, and very inspiring thoughts of like community. So the complexity was overwhelming, but yet the supports was the big aha, like, wow, there are things out there to help us.
Hollis, did you have any aha moments?
I don't know. I think from the provider perspective, what we've learned through this process is that families are very open and willing, and I think this. I say this process was kind of from like the outside in. They were not coming to a provider and we were saying, okay, we have A, B, and C for you, and try and fit into that box. We all kind of came together and said, well, what is a vision, and then how can we then make that vision happen? Which I think providers always want to do, but there's a lot of realities in regards to dollars, regulations, things like that don't allow you to do that. And so that's been a real challenge for us, is how are we still going to be able to make this vision happen, but still kind of fall within the rules, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Where to find out. Great, thank you so much. Any questions? I want to open it. So,
I'm coming your way.
Did the 9 families know each other beforehand, or how was the connection made?
They did not. We did not. Our 2 Kyles, who are now living together, we're kind of reflecting back and realizing, oh my gosh, they haven't even known each other for a full year, but they are now together and making it happen. So the 9 families, some families knew each other through Special Olympics and whatnot, but there was not like we didn't all know each other.
So how did you guys connect?
We did a call to action, and we so in our home-based program we serve a little under 1,200 families. So we utilized that client base to start, and then based off of location, interest, and also in regards to wanting the individuals to get along, we also looked at some similarities as well between the families, so that we weren't looking for somebody that had a 65-year-old son and a 20-year-old son. Those needs, as Michaela said, can be really different. So that's kind of how we put together the group. And it started with, was it 16? 14 or yeah. So there were some families that ended up dropping after they had gone through some of the process, because realized that it just wasn't something that was going to meet their needs at this time too.
So I know some people say they don't need the microphone, but I've been told it's for the recording as well.
yeah,
So-
we are live streaming this event, so when you speak into the microphone, it's easier for all of those folks who are at home.
Funding is a big question here. Coleman Foundation provided the grant for the training, I'm assuming, and there's no foundation to a family group per se. How are you dealing with the fact that some of the kids may have home-based funding, some may be applying for SILA funding, some may have nothing but private pay? What kind of challenges is that presenting?
That really has been, and I foresee that becoming a bigger challenge as we move forward, because we've gotten along, we kind of know what we want. Now it's kind of where we just recently did a survey trying to figure out what each family has, what they're going to need, what kind of services they need, what they're expecting, and how much as a family you're going to be able to contribute. So that's a good question. I'd like to see what happens a year from now.
So it may or may not be a SILA.
Well, it's. I don't think it's going to be a SILA. No.
I don't think that's the
That's not what we're looking for. We're looking more of a family-run kind of.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's even a term for it. So, right, yeah. Yeah.
Hold on, I've got a question waiting
Okay.
back here.
I want to say thank you to the parents. I'm here as a parent also, and I agree. I think the housing is a big issue, but the least of the issues. And what we're looking for is community. And Michaela frightened me when she said, you know, that what your adult child wants at 20 may change by the time they're 70. And I'm that 25%, my husband and I, over 60, who have our growing daughter living with us because we are her good friends and her chauffeur, et cetera, et cetera. She could live on her own, but she's missing a sense of community. And so we want to know that essentially she's in something for life because we've done a ton of moving and it's hard work. And when you talk about having robust caregivers there or mentors or whatever, I'm a nurse and I work in the elder population, people that pay a lot of money to be in support services. And the biggest thing that happens is the fishing hook goes out and it sounds like a wonderful thing and they move in and then you're constantly having change of people. And I know from working with people in memory care and those, we all have our own disabilities, that when there's a change up of people and you find someone you can connect with, it is like its own death and starting over. So my husband and I want to know that if our child is in a really good situation, it can be more of a permanent thing. She doesn't drive, but she needs people to love her. And I think you're just on the right step. You want to have meals together, to have that option, and go to movies and have a planner that's going to really connect them. And if there's someone who wants to stay isolated, that's fine, but hopefully they'll be drawn out because that's what's important about life. It's not living by yourself. It's not just what the community can give to them. We, our adult children, have so much to give to the community. And the one thing I'm cautioning myself is that we cannot be everything to everyone. So even though there's a billion people that need things, I'm reminding myself we need to start small and have successes. And then if we can add somebody into that mix, because if one person needs 95% of the stuff, it's problematic for the other 95% that only get 5% of the attention. So I thank you for being trailblazers. I hope we have a lot to learn from you and that we are not reinventing the wheel because I don't have that much energy.
Thank you.
I just want to do, if it's okay, a quick response to that. And that is, when I look at, reflecting on being here, look a little over a year ago, when I looked at my son's future, I felt nothing but fear. He's going to be alone. What's going to happen when something happens to us? Yes, I have a daughter, but it's not her responsibility. And thank you again to the Coleman Foundation. Because of this opportunity, I now have a tremendous amount of hope. And that hope comes from Center for Independent Futures for their model of having a community builder. Because my son probably would be the one that would want to just hang out at home by himself. But that community builder model, having some supports there so when we are gone, and it is still a fear because there might be a turnover for the community builder, and we recognize that. But by having a group of families working together, you realize you're not alone. And you're provided some structure with some hope and some supports to make something happen that will be a long-term. Like I said, we have a short-term solution for our sons right now. It's an amazing affordable housing situation, but we are thinking, like you said, long-term. When we are gone, who's going to be there? And we are hoping to develop that. And it's because of this amazing, and I will say, this amazing life-changing process that has provided hope, and hopefully will provide hope for others as well, and will continue to grow.
Good morning.
One more. I think we have time for one more question.
It's more of a comment. I wanted to first really thank Centers for inviting me and my colleague. I came here this morning thinking and still believing that I'm going to learn a lot from other developers and other providers about the model in itself for developing housing for persons with disabilities. So I want to say, I think to your first question, I think it's important that we continue, all of us continue to come together from the development side and working with organizations like this, because we get to learn and meet each other. Affordable housing, partnering with these organizations, helps families find permanent housing for their children as they are aging. I'm only speaking because I think we just developed a housing in Arlington Heights that your two sons are living in. So I just sat here and I was like, Tucky, Lundell, those are our tenants. And it's an affordable housing. It has it's a affordable housing project with market rate housing as well. And the purpose for developing affordable housing, it keeps the rents affordable so that persons with moderate incomes can live there and afford to live there in a quality environment. We also have developed another permanent supportive housing in Arlington Heights as well. Both projects are located in Arlington Heights. And it provides more care. It has a service provider on site. But the other project that we just opened does not. It's just a basic affordable housing environment with mixed incomes and market rate families that live there. So I'm excited. I can't wait to go back and we're going to tell Jess, oh my God, the panelists, their sons live in our housing. So I just want you to know it can work if we continue to partner, share information, and really support organizations like CIF.
Did you say who you're from?
Up Development and UPA Management.
Yep. Thank you for those words, and thank you to our panel. Thank you so much.